Hello, this is the Geek Protagonist, and I came across an article, and it's on men's health. I'll try to post as much of it as I can on screen. I think I got all of it, and I'll, you know, put some pictures throughout. And this is your first time on the channel. I hope you consider liking and subscribing. And I talk about geek stuff and sometimes life stuff. It all depends on how I feel that day. Pretty much whatever's on my mind. So, I have some issues with this, but Kevin Feige says he regrets whitewashing in Doctor Strange cast. It was a huge wake up call to say, well, wait a minute, is there any other way to figure it out? Is there any other way to both not fall into the cliche and cast an Asian actor? And the answer to that, of course, is yes. Now, this is the people, I think, by Evan Romano. This is the guy I think who actually wrote it. Marvel Studios came under fire for casting Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One in 2016's Doctor Strange. Now, just as a quick sidebar, if you don't remember, actually a lot of people were upset about this, and the excuse that they gave, or at least I think the director gave, someone gave, was that because the Ancient One was Tibetan, they didn't want to basically upset Chinese audience. So that's the excuse they gave back then. A lot of people were very upset and were very vocal about Tilda Swinton taking that role. Now, how they also tried to explain it was the Ancient One was a title, just like Doctor Strange, which it's not. But they tried to retcon that, or Doctor Strange would not be called the Sorcerer Supreme; he'd be called the Ancient One. But we'll just sweep that under the rug. Um, but basically saying that she was called the Ancient One, and that's why, even though she was white, she was also Celtic. Now, back to the article at hand. The previous company line was that the character was recast so as not to feed into racial stereotypes. But Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige now believes this could have been handled better. That is not what they originally said. That's my sidebar. Is there any other way to both not fall into the cliche and cast an Asian actor? And the answer to that, of course, is yes, he says in a new Men's Health cover story. Okay, so I guess he was the one that said it. When Marvel Studios cast actress Tilda Swinton, a white woman, as the Ancient One, a historically Asian male character, in the 2016 Doctor Strange, the studio immediately came under fire. At the time, director Scott Derrickson attempted to apologize and explain the casting choice away, telling the Daily Beast, I really felt like I was going to be contributing to a bad stereotype, elaborating that he initially made the choice to make the character female, but when he envisioned her played by an Asian woman, she was a straight up dragon lady. The decision still stands out as a sore thumb within the MCU 5 years later, and now the head of Marvel Studios is officially acknowledging that things could have been handled better. We thought we were being so smart and so cutting edge, Kevin Feige told Men's Health in a new cover story on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Star Simu Liu, we're not going to do the cliche of the wizened, old, wise Asian man. But it was a wake up call to say, well, wait a minute, is there any other way to figure it out? Is there any other way to both not fall into the cliche and cast an Asian actor? And the answer to that, of course, is yes. How many times are going to put this in the article? Jeez. Feige acknowledges that previous wrong while still being believing there's a clear path towards a better future that prioritizes more respectful on-screen adaptations and representation. In the story, he reveals that the story of Shang-Chi comes from a binder that existed since Marvel Studios' inception, filled with great characters who could make great movies regardless of how famous they were. And since a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie is now basically equivalent to a Disney owned branch of the US Mint, those are chances the studio is more comfortable in taking. Feige realized on that the popularity of Marvel characters didn't really play a huge role in determining the success of their film adaptation. The studio had two early hits with X-Men, which had been the company's most popular comic for a long time, and Blade, which most people didn't even realize was based on a comic. Okay, whoever's writing this article, Edmund, whatever, Correction, that was Fox with Marvel behind it. Blade was New Line with Marvel there. All Marvel pretty much did was, yeah, put her name on it so they know. They're not the cinematic universe. They were not hits for Marvel. Those were the Spider-Man was Sony, X-Men was Fox, and Blade was Lionsgate. They're the reason why the MCU exists. They're kind of like the godfathers of it. So, back to the story. That sort of proved early on that it wasn't about how famous the character was, but how great their potential was for becoming a cool movie or a series of movies, he said. And Shang-Chi had that potential for so long. Feige also said that while Shang-Chi has been on their radar as a story with big cinema potential for a long time, there was a limited space to fit in characters needed during the lead up to Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Once we finished what we call now the Infinity Saga, we rolled up our sleeves and said, okay, what's next? What are we going to kick off the next? Okay, he said, the next sort of evolution of the MCU post, our first big saga, and that's why Shang-Chi was at the very top of that list. And because Shang-Chi is a fairly obscure character, the studio can rewrite and modernize his story in ways that would be far less noticeable than updating more widely known stories like those of Captain America, Spider-Man, or Incredible Hulk. And Feige believes that Liu is the perfect man for the updated story. Liu is a very good actor. If you never watched Kim's Convenience, check that show out. Excellent show. It's about having a foot in both worlds, he says, in the North American world and in China, and Simu fits that quite well. Now, here's a few issues I have with this a bit. So, first thing, says some stuff. So, why is it that you were trying to avoid stereotypes? So, your initial thought was a Caucasian lady. Because if you made the Ancient One a woman, you would have thought Dragon Lady or the wizened old ancient Asian person. So you're saying like with Kill Bill with Pai Mei, that was bad? Or the fact that you could have gotten like Sonny Chiba to play the Ancient One, that would have been cool. That actually would have been pretty awesome. But or like Jet Li or someone and gave them the role. And here's what makes this even more ridiculous for me. Why is it that you only could think of that specific thought? As Caucasian males, that does say something, apparently, if you're going by what this article is saying and what the narrative is of Caucasian straight white males. Because one of the things is you could have gave that same exact attitude to an Asian person and it wouldn't have been a dragon lady. Or, she quipped, she was jokey, but she was wise and she was there and they were in Tibet. So why didn't you? You could have had Michelle Yeoh play it. Now she ended up being in Guardians of the Galaxy for that short stint, but she would have totally fit that role and been amazing at it. See how I'm naming actors who are Asian who are popping up? It's just me talking about it. Then on top of that, it gets even crazier because you guys only could think of them in that one way. So you couldn't have written maybe the Ancient One to have kind of like a more jokier kind of personality, like how they did Raiden off of Mortal Kombat, just for example, or how you had Wong and Wong was fine. He was, he was quippy, he was jokey. You had him hang out with him a lot. You couldn't have the Ancient One kind of match Wong's comedy. I mean, that's what you guys do most of the time. You try to make everybody laugh 90% of the time. Half your movies is just quips, except for like Black Panther. So that says a lot to me about the fact that they couldn't think beyond their face. And they couldn't think of any way outside of what they considered a stereotype when you could have easily characterized that the Ancient One, woman or man, younger or older, you could have characterized them in a way where it didn't feel that way because For example, like when they said the Wi-Fi password, what do you think we're savages? So they showed they had modernization. You could have easily had the ancient one be wise but still be a normal person. Like, no, I'm normal. Like, hey, you want to go get a going to get a veggie hot dog? And Doc Strange probably be like, you can have a veggie hot dog. Yeah, let's go get one. Like little things you could have did that wouldn't have made it be the wise, stiff, I don't move, I am the wise and I know all kind of thing. And you could have did the same thing with instead of having the dragon lady, which are like Lady Shiva, or I guess you could put that under a category. You could have had it where the same exact thing. Just give them personality and make them a normal person. Now, what's also hilarious is, besides the fact that they released this article, of course, when it's Asian and Pacific Islander month. Interesting with that. Why was there no mention in? I swear I'm going to say his name wrong. Elijah Chetowal. He's a great actor. He really is. Like in Serenity alone, the dude's amazing. Red Belt, 12 Years a Slave. I'm butchering his name right now, but he's a phenomenal actor. So I'm not saying I don't think he did a great job as Baron Mordo. Just like I think Tilda Swinton actually did a pretty good job as the Ancient One. But then that still raises the question: why is that was a problem, but you're completely fine with Baron Mordo being blackwashed if you're talking about you whitewashed the Ancient One? Now, if you wanted, as I've always said, if you want to use a black character, then go use a black character. Or you could have also had it where maybe Dormammu, instead of using Calisius, maybe you could have had Dormammu trying to come through and his avatar happened to be a black guy. And you can't say, well, you can't make a black person villain because Baron Mordo is going to be a villain. Even if he's a big bad by the third movie or he starts to show up as a constant threat in the second movie, you have officially made Baron Mordo a villain, which means you turned a black person to a villain. So why couldn't you have the powerhouse be Dormammu and then turned around, did that where it's like, well, come to my world. And then Dormammu shows his true face, which, by the way, the reason why they changed Dormammu from the flaming head is because China has rules about ghosts and flames and stuff like that. If you don't believe me, go look at the Chinese version of Marvel Future Fight. You will see Ghost Rider, Dormammu, Robbie Reyes, and anyone that has that spectral look shadowed out. That's why they changed his look that way. So this says something to me because it's like you made the decision because you were trying not to be racially insensitive, and in turn, you were following the exact same stereotype that's been in Hollywood, like, what they did at Breakfast at Tiffany's and stuff like that with Jerry Lewis, stuff that's vice versa. Now, let's look at some of these comments. So, you got people who are saying, I don't see it as a problem. For example, at Brazil exists a famous Buddhist woman, Manja Cohen, and seems very similar with the history. Someone put, good God, you can't win. You're either whitewashing nowadays or blackwashing, etc. And when you don't, you still get crucified. Media in all forms has become a toxic cesspool. The story is kind of ironic given that Marvel is one of the wokest franchises now. Just catering and pandering because it is Asian American Awareness Month and year. I just said that. Someone goes, "What the heck?" or "What the hell?" There have been just as many characters in comics or movies that have been blackwashed. Johnny Storm, Commissioner Gordon, Nick Fury, soon to be Superman, to name a few. They're creating a brand new Black Clark Kent Superman to replace the current when there already is an established alternate universe Black Superman. But no, they won't do that. They just want to erase the already established ones. Where's their regret for those? I see the point, but the person's pointing out what I'm saying. Why are you upset about the one unless you're specifically attacking a race of being white? You should. Here's my whole thing. Unless it makes sense to the story, like Jason Momoa's Aquaman actually made sense to the story. The Pacific Islanders are ocean people. He still had the blind blue eye kind of thing with the mom. They tweaked it a little, but and his brother Orm still looked like that, but in its own way, it kind of made him a a type of people who are known to be ocean faring people. Pacific Islanders are known for ocean and traveling, so I understood where they came from. And we got here. I'm seeing a lot of comments that completely miss the point. It's about representation. There are so few characters or roles for minority actors. I don't agree, especially of Asian descent. I also don't agree. It's just the fact that a lot of times they're not casting them like they should be. They're starting to now, but they should have been doing it. Dragon Ball should have been Asian characters, for examples, but that movie is. Ugh. So you take one of the few Asian characters and turn it into a role for a white actor. This is nothing against Tilda Swinton. She did a good job, but as a white actor, she has so many more opportunities for roles available to her than minority actors. There are so many Asian actors who don't even get a chance to show that they're just as talented. It's the same about Mordo. The vast majority of roles are written for white actors. Giving the role to a black actor isn't really hurting white actors because most roles are intended to be white characters. Let's see here. The person then responds, I don't think point is their concern. They actually believe blackwashing is a thing. You can't prove a point to stupid. What's left, just point and laugh at them. You are so humanly correct in your post, but to the wrong crowd who will never care. Smelling your farts for a different sense would be more productive. All right. Someone responded, nobody is missing the point. You're just an idiot. There are plenty of minority characters in comics, original ones at that. And not only that, but instead of creating new ones, they just flip their races and keep the same name or powers. Nick Fury, Blackwash. Johnny Storm, Blackwash. They're erasing or changing original and already established characters to pander to people like you. Do your research. Someone goes, you just shot down your argument. Plenty of minority characters. Before Shang-Chi, how many Asian characters have been in the MCU? Wong from Doctor Strange, Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man and WandaVision. I would have also said technically Sky and also May, but that's no longer part of the MCU. But when it was, they were both are actors of Asian descent. Show me other Asian characters. Jubilee and Blink in the X-Men. Yeah, that's plenty. Shaking my head. Yes, you're missing the point. Minorities aren't just one group. Here was one of the few roles written for an Asian character, and they gave the role to a white person again. Do your research, moron. Movies are full of white people taking the role of minorities, especially Asian. Katharine Hepburn played an Asian woman in Yellowface. Charlie Chan was played by a white man. Mickey Rooney, sorry I mistakenly said it was Jerry Lewis, in My Anger and Haste, played a Japanese man in Breakfast at Tiffany's. In a role making fun of Asians, you're just feeling threatened because not everyone on the screen is white anymore, and we're not the stereotypes you can make fun of, and that's a good thing. There's a few more, but that's just some people's reactions. Here's what it comes down to. If Don't be fooled by this fake diversity stuff. If they want to do diversity, then they would actually grab the characters who are that said race and put them in the role. But what they keep doing is they keep flipping the role to try to make things. If that's the case, and Kevin Feige himself just said it, it doesn't matter the popularity of the character, it matters about the story. This proves then you should be digging through your archives for you need black characters, here's black characters. You need Asian characters, here's Asian characters. You need Native American characters, here's Native American characters. You have, Marvel has thousands of characters. And they could easily do this, and so does DC. And instead, what most of them do is what they're doing with Superman. Instead of using the other multiple Supermen, they're using Clark Kent because it's how they're saying it. It's what they think about us as people of minorities. We're only as good if the white is given to us, if that white title is given to us. Not the character of Superman, but specifically of the white character of Clark Kent. Are you seeing where I'm coming from with this? This is the message that they're actually saying. This is why people are upset about the race swapping, because it's a hand-me-down of saying you're not good enough. Your characters aren't good enough. to be here. So what we're going to do instead, we're going to race swap to these white characters who have been traditionally white to show you how good you can be through a white person's handout. Then we will sprinkle in some of these characters accordingly. That's the message I'm getting. As a matter of fact, I may do a video about that. But until then, that's my reaction. Tell me what you guys think. I personally feel it's a little ridiculous that he's totally upset now or reflecting now about Tilda Swinton being cast when people back then were saying, why did you cast a white person? I seen it. I watched it. Massive amounts of people were like, what are you doing? Cast an Asian person. Their in response was, we didn't want to piss off the government of China. We didn't want to be disrespectful. That's why we didn't make it a Tibetan person. And the quote is out there. But now they're changing the narrative, hoping people forget. Well, a lot of us don't. This is the Geek Protagonist. You stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real, and I'll see you.